And welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. We are going to talk about it's not so much cancel culture, but we're going to talk a lot about the most controversial figures that have been kind of in your news feeds the last couple of days across the country. We're going to talk about Gruden. We're going to talk about Meyer. We're going to talk about Dave Chappelle, possibly talk about Ben Simmons and Kyrie Irving, maybe even at the very end, a little Social Security news as well. But we're going to try to dive into some of these topics, take some different angles on them. But before we get to all of that, everybody's favorite question, the most important question, Mark, how are you feeling today?
I'm good. We're back.
Yes.
I'm just happy to be back. Sorry for the delay. I know you people were lost without us. The world was just spiraling out of control. John Gruden was lost without us, as you can tell. Now he's just lost. But we do bring, we obviously like sports. We try to bring the sports topics that bring real world topics, not just let's talk about the game last night. Although we could talk about, lots of games from last night. But, the Gruden, the Meyer, the Kyrie, the Ben Simmons, and obviously Chappelle and Netflix in between. And there's just a lot of where society fits in all these aspects of the world, whether it's with COVID, whether it's with cancel culture, whether it's, what you can say, what you can't say. And it's a fascinating time that we live in, for better or for worse.
It really is. So John Gruden, I guess the correct terminology is that he resigned.
Correct.
However, that is probably not how it was going to play out if he would not have kind of put his foot forward before the Raiders had a chance to react, and really before the NFL had a chance to react. Because as it's coming out now, the NFL, the further this goes along, I don't know how much you've read about it or how far into it you've gotten. The further this goes along, the more apparent it becomes that the NFL, for lack of a better terminology, dragged their feet on it a little bit. There have been people that have known about this for weeks, some months, that this was coming down the pipeline, and the NFL just kind of drug on a little too long to the point where it literally got to the point where Gruden was able to walk away before the Raiders or the NFL really had a chance to say what they would have done or what would have happened.
Well, the story I heard is the NFL was going to do something if the Raiders didn't do something first, and the Raiders approached him, and he said, "I'll resign." And I think that the majority
only in the NFL is that the chain of command. Only in the NFL,
I guess. I mean, there's fascinating topics all over I know one of the things that I'd read, and I think you corroborated this. I didn't read it, or I didn't investigate it, but Gruden has been taken out of the Ring of Honor of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was the head coach when they won the Super Bowl in 2002. But O.J. Simpson is still in the Ring of Honor for the Buffalo Bills. That's what I've heard. Mm-hmm. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's interesting.
Yes.
But one of the stupid little ironies about this part of I don't say he went after everyone, because these were all private, friendly emails between him and a buddy. But he was obviously disparaging against women, against gays, against blacks. And now on the Raiders, he has the only openly gay football player in the NFL. His comments were way before about when the Rams drafted the first openly gay player, but he never made it in the NFL. But he was very. There's a lot of old white guy in this. Old white rich guy.
Oh yeah. He
talks like an old white rich guy.
We are still. It's kind of like one of my favorite things to read about with the stock market and crypto is this idea.
Hold on, let me jump in. I don't mean to stereotype not all old white rich guys are like this, but that's the.
Well, I mean, it's another one of those
it's the
stories.
Stereotype.
If there was a genre of what the story falls into in the news circuit, this is one of them. Whenever you're reading a stock market piece or a crypto piece, there's always this idea of your people are always behind. It is amazing how many people aren't yet invested or how many people aren't yet doing this. It is amazing to me how many people don't realize yet that if you text something or you email something, there is a more than likely chance that if you're doing something you shouldn't be, it is going to come back to bite you. And it's just amazing to me that even now in 2021, there are still people that in the early 2000s and into the 2010s and into now that still don't fully grasp what that digital screenshot, what that digital text will do to you. And like, once you put it in a text or an email, it is no different than going and saying it to the people that you are talking about themselves. There's no difference. And it amazes me that people...
It is a little different because they might never see it.
Yeah, but that's a roll of the dice.
But it is a roll of the dice.
And see, I think to most people, it's not a roll of the dice.
No, but most people are not famous. So to most people, no one cares. And no one's going to, if this happens to Joe Schmo, it doesn't affect his life at all. I shouldn't say that.
It doesn't until it does, I guess.
That's fair. That's fair. That's well said.
See, and I guess that's the point I'm making is like, even as you and I talk about it, I would argue like even you haven't fully understood, like, but like when you're texting something or you're writing something out, you never think that the repercussions of somebody who wouldn't.
No.
You just, and what I'm saying to you is people my age and beneath me, that is the thought process.
That's why they snap.
That is why they snap.
We talked about
it. It is amazing that it's not bigger. That went down this morning, by the way.
What?
Snapchat. They had like
it crashed?
Snapchat crashed for a little bit. I haven't looked back up yet if it's back up and running or not, but yeah.
There are some guidance counselors in high schools right now working overtime.
Probably.
Snap is down. Yeah. How do I survive? No, it's I don't know. A lot of the things that I've seen about it, the people who defend Gruden are saying he said these things a long time ago. And one of the aspects of society that we do need to look at and deal with is the changing relevance of culture, of what was acceptable at the time and what wasn't acceptable at the time. And even though maybe some things, like we saw the Dr. Seuss company pull some of their books because they just don't play well anymore. But it doesn't mean that the people who wrote them at the time were evil, because at the time that was the social norm. So we have to kind of balance this. The thing with Gruden, though, is because I've read where people said, well, who hasn't said things like that? Haven't you said things like that? And it's like, well, we said things like that to our buddies when we were 13. Like, Gruden was a 50-some-year-old adult as a professional. And there's a difference of how you insult your friends when you're a teenager, or even how you insult your friends when you're an adult, or how you disparage a group of people, an entire group of people, whether it be over race or gender or sexual orientation.
So the hardest conversation that I've had with people, like whenever that is the excuse or that is the defense, like they said it so long ago. And they say like, well, it was acceptable then. And my response to that is always acceptable to who? Because
Wouldn't it be to whom?
To whom. And that's fine. But the point I'm making is it's acceptable in your mind because you had justified it. Meanwhile, to other people in society, whether it's today or tomorrow or yesterday or 20 years ago, there was probably a group, there was probably somebody it was not acceptable to. And how we decide to judge, jury, and executioner that in the court of public opinion, that is one that I still think we're trying to sort out. We're still trying to figure out, because I don't think that you can say at a certain point it was acceptable. It was only acceptable to the people who found it acceptable. It was not acceptable to the people who didn't think it was acceptable. It doesn't matter if there's 20 years between it, because 20 years ago there was somebody that would have found it.
Well, I think that's a little too simplistic, because that'd be like saying, like,
it's not simplistic.
Heavy metal music is societally acceptable. It doesn't mean that there aren't people in society who don't accept it, who still think it's the work of Satan.
You cannot compare what he said in the emails to heavy metal music.
But what I'm saying is, just because there are people in society that find it unacceptable doesn't mean that at this time frame in society, it's not societally acceptable.
Okay.
So
so what I would say to that then is, if it was societally acceptable, then why would he say it in an email but then not say it in a public crowd? Because to me, if it's societally acceptable, then you don't need to
I'm
say those
not
things.
defending what Gruden
right.
did.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying in general.
And so what I'm saying is, like, as a society, like, if we're digging back 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, I think one of the trickiest things to gauge, like one of the hardest things that people are going to have to come to grips with is that if it's a private text or it's a private email and if your reasoning is that, well, back then it was societally acceptable, all I'm saying then is I doubt very highly the things he put in those email, he would have gotten up on a microphone and said. And thus, if he's not willing to do that, then you can't explain to me that these were acceptable by society if you're only putting them in a private email.
Well, and not only that, like, I think it's hard. How should I say this? I don't think people are really saying in 2011 and 2013, 2015 that it was acceptable, that the world has changed that much. You know, if he'd said him in 1955, the world's a little different. But it's that they're saying he wasn't the coach then. This was before he was the coach. And but that we'll find out, like, these emails went on over a length of time. Just because they started or whatever in 2011, they went on.
But the other point, but I can't find it.
The other point that I've had people make is they're like, well, what about, like, human growth? Like, what about that he might have had a change of heart over time, and don't we allow? And I was like, yes, I'm all for that. However, he needs to have displayed that somewhere along the line before we got to the point of you're about to lose your $50 million that's remaining on your contract. There had to be an enlightenment or a contrition or something, because he was very willing to blast them over email. Like, if he did have a change of heart, that would be great. Is there any evidence? And the people that are supporting him, the people that are the naysayers say, well, maybe he had a change of heart. Maybe he did. But there needs to be some evidence of that other than you're hoping that he didn't. And it would appear that he didn't. One of the things that, in talking to a buddy of mine last night, they said that he had heard in these emails, there was some sort of profanity or, you know, the language that's out there in every single one of them. Now, you know, I swear, you swear, you know,
Sure.
Whatever. But how often do we send an email with profanity in it? Like, never. If it's on my text chain with my college buddies, or if it's, but you know, never. So, like, that's.
I think him walking away, and again, this is going to be an opinion show more than anything else today. I think the fact that he so willingly and so quickly walked away just shows you how damning. And to me, it shows that he probably didn't have a change of heart, and he probably didn't show a progression from beginning to end. Because if you could, like, if any part of you thinks you could defend yourself, if any part of you believes that you're a good person and you deserve to keep that job, you do not just pack it up and go. Like, you say you're going to have to fire me. You say, like, you're going to have to get rid of me because I believe that I have changed, or I have shown growth, or I have. And so him just so willingly calling it a night, to me, that was all I needed to say.
I agree with that point. I'm still waiting for a comment from Carl Nassib. I don't think he made one yet. I think.
Do you think he will?
I think he has to, because he is the only openly gay player.
Yes.
And he is on the Raiders. So to hear the disparaging remarks that he made, basically Gruden criticized the NFL for, in his words, pressuring the Rams into drafting Michael Sams back when they drafted him. No, Michael Sams was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. So it's not like this guy was a reach as a football player. Now, he never ended up really making it in the NFL, but be that as it may. I agree with you on the quickness of his resignation and the basically, you know, I plead guilty and throw myself at the mercy of the court is basically what he did.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's also interesting the fact that Gruden is lovable because of his stint as a broadcaster of Monday Night Football. They call him Chucky because he kind of looks like, you know, the doll. Gruden has always been a lovable figure until a couple days ago. Gruden is one of the most overrated coaches in NFL history. When you look at his records, he has had I think he's had 14 full seasons. He's had a winning record like 6 times. Mm-hmm. The year he won the Super Bowl, they won 3 games to win the Super Bowl. Sure. In all his other years, he's won 2 other playoff games. And since he's been to the Raiders gave him a 10-year, $100 million contract, and he's 22-31. Yeah. Now, one of the years they were doing really well and the quarterback got hurt, and that changed things. But there is no great standard where John Gruden is. He won a Super Bowl.
Sure.
Other than that, he's not been that good. And I wonder how much of it, too, the Raiders were thinking, we have a bad contract and we can get out of it. We want to get it. There's lots of guys around this league that can lead us to 22-31 that we don't have to pay $10 million a year to.
I mean, that's possible. I mean, I get a good segue maybe into the Urban Meyer thing because you want to dive back into that a little more. The one thing that I took from this, as far like outside of the Gruden aspect of it, players who had played for him and people that were around him came out of the woodwork to basically be like, yeah, he's not a great guy.
Who?
John Gruden's former players came out and said, like, yeah, he really wasn't. And I don't know if you got to hear Keyshawn Johnson talk about it before.
I know Keyshawn made a statement. I read a little bit of it, but I didn't hear it.
So he spoke about him. And the one thing that it does, like, there's a lot of times where we, like, you and I have said it ourselves before, like, sometimes the coach is overhyped. Like, sometimes the coach is overhyped. Sometimes the coach isn't doing as much as you think, like, da-da-da. But the one thing that I vehemently agree with is sometimes it's not even X's and O's. Sometimes, and whether you're a boss, whether you're a coach, whatever it is, there is no doubt that your players, your employees, the people underneath you, they are watching. You may not have a direct impact on what the final score is or on how the company does that day, but I can tell you right now that, like, when the coach walks around, players watch. And so it is funny to listen to Keyshawn Johnson. And I don't even think he thought Gruden was a good coach, this great person. But, like, Keyshawn Johnson's like, yeah, I watched every step he took. And they weren't very good. He did a lot of, like, selfish things. And that is, like, when you say he's a bad coach because he didn't win, when you listen to his players talk, he wasn't a good coach because his players didn't respect him. They thought he was selfish. They thought he was greedy. Now, if you're you and me sitting on our couch watching Monday Night Football, and he's funny, he's great, he's everything. But the people, like the dudes that had to line up with him and be next to him day in and day out, they had very different stories to tell this week. Very different stories to tell, which leads us into Urban Meyer.
Yes, and when you were saying about coaches being overrated, I was going to say there's no more sport where coaches are overrated than basketball.
I agree. It's too fast. You can't really have that much of an impact on it. Too much happening.
I just figured I'd throw that in.
Urban Meyer, I mean,
teams win state championships essentially on autopilot.
Yes, you roll the ball. You roll the balls out, and you just say, put the orange thing into the orange thing. And it all takes care
of itself. The only question is, at practice, how many do you roll out? Do you just roll one, or sometimes do you use multiple?
If at Loyal Sock High School we rolled out one ball, they would it would just be like Squid Game. It would be like Hunger Games.
They would kill each other trying to get that one ball.
Kid would walk out of the gym. So we always have one ball per one player so that they don't, because everyone's got to score, and that's how it goes.
You can't shoot if you don't have the ball.
That's true. You miss it. Every shot you don't take. Urban Meyer, you don't want to defend Urban Meyer, but you've brought up a very, I don't want to call it a bright point because I disagree with you, but I think it's a fair talking point to discuss because legally Urban Meyer did nothing wrong. And so it is a good discussion about, if you've legally done nothing wrong, what are the repercussions? Should you keep your job? Should you not keep your job? It was a good discussion, so I think it's worth talking about.
All right, here's my stance. First of all, let me start by saying I don't like Urban Meyer at all. Okay. He's just, and of course I don't know him. All I've done is watch him as a coach and at Florida and at Ohio State. He just comes across as unlikable.
Okay.
For whatever that's worth. So personally, I think it's funny that he went to Jacksonville and he's getting his butt kicked every week. I think that's funny. And I think that this has been funny because I think it is a guy who thinks he's above it all. And I just picture him walking around a college campus, like as the drill sergeant, as the king, and telling these teenagers how, and the teenagers have to worship at his feet because he controls their future and their professional whatever. And now he has fallen so hard, I think it's funny. Be that as it may. There's no criminal act here. And the hypocrisy that I see around this is I find to be laughable. That the only person as I see through this that should be really, really upset is his wife. Mm-hmm.
Give the 10-second rundown of what he did.
He was sitting in a bar that he owns, and he was there. He's sitting on a bar stool, and some young debating house, we'll say she's 20-something, kind of backed her way into his lap as he's sitting on a bar stool, and he's seen groping her while she's there. Okay.
Last thing for context. This was after a loss that he had not flied back with the team. He stayed instead to go to this bar. Go ahead.
So from all, and now I haven't interviewed her, I haven't even heard her speak, that she was a very willing participant in this. If this had been non-consensual, we have a whole different story.
Sure.
She was very happily consensual, it seems like. So, okay, no issue there. Other than the fact that he's married, and his wife should have an issue with it. Now, when we get to the whole point of why everyone is in an uproar, like the thing that I get, I understand why society looks at it and says, this is a married man doing this in a bar to someone else. I get it. Society in a lot of ways needs to look in the mirror. If it's because he's 60 years old and this girl was 25, I don't get that. She's very, and I'm going to even say she initiated it because he's sitting on a bar stool. He didn't lasso her and reel her in. So, but as far as the whole point of losing the locker room, he must have already lost the locker room before this, because the guys that are in the locker room, if their buddy does this and they get caught on camera, they're not like, I'm not speaking to you anymore. I've lost. They feel sorry for. I mean, how many professional football players have not done something very similar, whether they were in college because they were the big time football player and the girls are that. So I think all the guys, it's like, I'm so ashamed at what he did. I'll bet a bunch of them did the same thing, especially to a girl that was willing. So this whole, he's not there. They've lost 19 in a row. Only 5 of them with him, or 20 or whatever it is. He's not doing well as an NFL coach. There's a lot of talk that he's over his head. There's talk that he didn't bond with the players already and there were problems. But if this is a really, really successful coach who has bonded with his players, who they think are going somewhere, are they running him out of town? Or is this, Rick Pitino, when he was at Louisville, winning national championships, had an admitted extramarital affair where the woman blackmailed him. He turned her in. She was trying to extort him for money. He turned her into the authorities, all this stuff. And Rick Pitino kept his job at Louisville until they had other scandals down the road. But the extramarital affair didn't cost him a job because society's filled with extramarital affairs. Mm-hmm. So that locker room is filled with extramarital affairs, even though I'm just speculating. Sure. I'm mathematically speculating. The only person, if the girl didn't want it, then she should be up in arms and his wife should be up in arms. If the girl was very happily there, and then his wife is the only person that should be irate about this. And why society wants to, burn this guy at the, where did they burn the witches? The stake? At the stake. That was it. I couldn't think of it. Why they want to burn this guy, I just don't get it.
Okay.
There, I'm done.
That was good. So a lot to unpack there. So my biggest argument, I guess, against it, and you and I have talked about, I think way too many times we make it a bigger deal than what it actually is. I think in the court of public opinion, he's probably getting a little more roughed up than what he probably should be. Legally, he did nothing wrong. I would say where the real issue here comes from is just the idea of, that is not Mark Messina. That is not Jeff Everett. That is not Joe Schmo. It is Urban Meyer who signed a contract to lead a group of gentlemen in the NFL for millions of dollars. And the problem is, his real job, really his job is to represent the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's not, yes, you want to win. yes, you would hope he knows some X's and O's. Yes, you would hope free agents want to come play to him. Like there's a list underneath it, but the top list really is to just represent the organization well and make sure that your players respect you. And anything that you do that throws a wrench into that, you are not performing your contract. Like you are not doing the due diligence of it. And so my biggest thing with you with this whole thing that I said is like, he's not a normal person. He is Urban Meyer.
I get all that.
When you decide, like after you lose that football game, and I said you have a business decision to make when you lose that football game. You get back on the plane with your team, you go back to Jacksonville, and you start getting to work, and how are we going to fix this? Or you decide to not get on the plane and go to the bar. And listen, did fun happen to fall into his lap? Fine. But the reality of it is... Was that
a pun?
The reality, his lap pun? The reality of it is that was the business decision he made. Because this is what I would say to you. 29 other NFL coaches played a game, and half of them lost. And so what do you think the other 14 losing coaches did? Do you think they got back on their plane? Do you think they got in a TMZ scandal, whatever? So it just comes down to this idea of like, I don't think he's done anything legally wrong. Like, I don't think he's like this evil person. If I'm the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, is he my head coach? Probably not.
Now. I think there's a couple details. They played a Thursday night game.
Yep.
So they had 10 days off. So the team was probably off.
That's fine.
Until Tuesday.
That's fine.
So it wouldn't be shocking if he's not the only guy who didn't go home on the team flight.
That's fine.
So, I mean, from that aspect, the whole aspect of not going home on the team flight is not these are professionals. It's not totally unheard of.
That's fine. How many of the 14 losing head coaches, how many of them do you think did not go to the office or go to home afterwards?
But when they lose,
how many of them went?
But when they lose on Sunday,
how many of them went to a bar?
But no, I get that. But it's like a vacation. When you lose on Sunday, you're back at work on Monday. When you win on Sunday, you're back at work on Monday.
When you're 0-4, there's schedule. When you're 0-4 in the NFL, making millions of dollars as a first-time head coach, there is no vacation after a Thursday. There isn't. There's no vacation. And this is, I will defend you in this way. I think you and I are having two separate conversations because I think my conversation is more just like, this is Urban Meyer. This is the scenario in the football world. And so, like, do I think he should be the Jacksonville head coach? I don't, because of that world. And what you're saying is what happened outside of that world, people think he should lose his job. And I do get what you're saying. Like, in that world, he technically didn't do anything that you or I or anybody else would have lost their job for. They might have ended up in the doghouse. They might have ended up sleeping on the couch, but they wouldn't have lost their job.
Or sleeping in the doghouse.
There you go. Yes. So I get your sentiment. I just think you and I are having two separate conversations.
But I go back to the hypocrisy of inside the room, where you're like, Urban Meyer is different than everybody else in society. So is everybody in that locker room. They are NFL players.
Like him.
Not like him, but close. So let me give you an example.
It's not like close, though, but it's not.
It is, though.
It isn't, because this is why.
You don't think Trevor Lawrence is close?
No, because this is why. When Trevor Lawrence shows up in the building that day, if Urban Meyer decides that Trevor Lawrence isn't playing, Trevor Lawrence isn't playing. Trevor Lawrence.
I don't know about that. Yes, I think Urban Meyer then may get fired.
Okay, but you get the sentiment of what I'm saying. Like, Trevor Lawrence doesn't walk in and he isn't making decisions for 80 other guys. Now, how he plays and what he does might influence what happens.
I get that.
He doesn't have the final card.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Urban Meyer has the card. He has the keys. It is his choice what is about to happen.
Let me ask you this. And I hate to link names with it because this is purely hypothetical just to make my argument, but it's me. If Tom Brady does this, if Patrick Mahomes does this.
Does which part?
Does what?
Goes to a bar?
Yes.
Okay.
If Lamar Jackson does this, if Russell Wilson does this, are any of these guys in jeopardy of losing their job? Because I know they're not the head coach, but they are far and away the biggest player in their locker room.
But the guys that you just said have a track record of success and don't have the track record that Urban Meyer has going into this.
And I agree with that.
There's a difference. There's not a pattern of like putting myself before what would be best for my organization.
So you're saying part of is the baggage that he has brought with him is part of why this is so
100%.
Okay, that's fair. That is fair.
100%. Because if he, like you hinted at, like if he was 4-0, if he was successful, all these things. And I would argue, like, if he didn't try to hire people with allegations, if he wouldn't have brought in a former quarterback to play tight end when he clearly wasn't capable of it, like if he wouldn't have done all of those things leading up to it, then all of a sudden, like, maybe it is a blurb on the radar and it is like just a court of public opinion thing and it doesn't fall into the realm of football. But like, because of what has happened, this is like the cherry on the top of it.
And I think too,
because to me, go ahead. Because to me, like the last piece of this would be, like I said to you, if I was the owner, he would no longer be my head coach. But my argument to you would be like, I've already put up with like 3 or 4 things. Like, it's not like he's coming to me for the first time and I'm like,
he wasn't an altar boy when he showed up.
Correct.
That's a good point.
And even since he's been there, he has done some things that aren't, again, nothing illegal. Like, I don't think Urban Meyer's, I don't like him, but I don't think he's evil. Like, I don't think he's like a horrific
he hired
person
a guy that had a background
with allegations and then the Tebow stuff.
As a coach,
So it's just very, I don't know, from a workplace scenario, like from a workplace situation, people, depending on who you are different. And there are people in this world, in this society, where like a lot of your paycheck is really like to just not be a bad example. Like, just don't cause distraction. And here's like 70% of your paycheck. The other 30%, like, yes, you've got to do some things. But 70% of this is just like, just make sure that when everyone else in the room walks in, they respect you. And that's 70% of your paycheck. And Urban Meyer has failed to do that.
Well, I think part of the reason that that society's hopped on this so much is because he's failing and because he's so unlikable. And he's not the first coach. There have been, Nick Saban didn't make it in the NFL and Steve Spurrier didn't make it in the NFL. And there are a lot. Those are the two that come to my mind right away. There are a few that did. Jimmy Johnson did. Pete Carroll has. Matt Rule, we'll see. He's in he's in the second year and he seems like he has a grasp on it. Right. But I think people love seeing America loves seeing the mighty fall, especially the unlikable mighty. And I think that's part of it. But the other part of the hypocrisy that drives me insane is he is going, if Jacksonville has a press conference tomorrow and says he's out, either in the fall of 22 or in the fall of 23, he will be back on a college campus, a big-time college campus, maybe like USC. He will win. And ESPN and everyone else will fawn all over him like he is this savior of college football.
He has certainly become big enough. Like, there is a sense, like, once you are big enough, you do get this kind of like, this is a bad analogy, you do get this like get out of jail free card. Because again, we've said he's done legally nothing wrong. But there is this idea of like, once you're into coaching, there is this concept of like, you might not get the job you want anymore, but you're still going to get a job other people would love to have. And even Rick Pitino, like Rick Pitino's working again.
Like, is he at Iona still?
He's Division I Iona. Yeah. So like
they went to the
and listen, do you think is Iona, did Rick Pitino ever want to or think he would coach at Iona? No chance. But you know how many other people would die to have the Iona job?
They were in the tournament.
And yeah, they literally would kill to have that Iona job. And Rick Pitino can mess up and still fall into the Iona job. And Urban Meyer, without a doubt, is in that classification. He can mess up and he'll still get a job that somebody else would die to have. Somebody else would have to be perfect to get that job, and Urban Meyer will fall into it. Absolutely. I don't disagree with that at all.
Crazy. But be that as it may. Do we have time to talk? Should we hold Chappelle for a time that we can talk?
We can't. Well, you want to watch it? I mean, maybe we'll just introduce it and then we'll talk. We'll have like the real discussion.
I saw the headline that said Chappelle doubles down, and you talk. It's just this topic. Well, we'll give people homework if they want to go watch it. Is it on Netflix right now?
It's on Netflix right now.
It is. Our discussion about this is going to be the importance of what comedians play in society. Back in the day, a lot of it was the comic strips.
Yeah.
That it is a way to poke fun, point things out in society that don't always make sense, and do it in a humorous way, but to try to enlighten. And and we talked beforehand about the political correctness of the world. You mentioned that like George Carlin would have trouble, that former comedians would have trouble now, unless they were so well established that they could take the shots. Because now when you take some of these stances, you're going to take a lot of shots from the social media world. And Chappelle is one of those guys that's obviously big enough he can withstand it. And what just the value of that these people hold in society when they want to tackle a controversial issue. Because if you tackle any controversial issue, you are going to face the wrath of some side.
Sure. And he goes into this because full disclosure, I have watched it. I've seen the whole thing once, and then I watched the back end of it a second time because like just to try to digest it again. Just because the message and what he's saying, it's not even about agreeing or disagreeing with him. There's so many anecdotes and stories he tells, and they attach to, Black history, and they attach to the LGBTQ community, and linking them together and trying. So as a white straight male who's not in either of those worlds fully, I had to watch it a second time to just try to link it all together and then try to like really just, what's the word I'm looking for? Like just kind of
I know.
Not sort it
absorb
it, let it just kind of swirl around in my head and really know how I internally felt about the show itself. Because the one thing that I will say, and then I'll shut up about it so we can talk about it later after you watch it, hopefully, I think it's incredibly valuable. And I there are things he says that I disagree with. There are things he says I agree with. But the one thing that I will dispute with anybody is the value of him doing that show and the value of having somebody talk about it the way he talks about it, and the problems and the issues that he brings up about society. I wish we had more Dave Chappelle's. I wish he did more shows like that. Not because like I agreed with the whole show. I just think we lack it. I don't know if we have enough people like him doing these types of things and pointing out these types of things in our culture and our society.
And he's not a dumb guy.
He is. I've told you before, like we made our list of people we would like to see run for some type of office. I am still of the belief I would love to see Dave Chappelle run for some type of office.
Is he an A-lister?
Is Dave Chappelle an A-lister? In the stand-up comedian world?
No. In the Jeff Everett world.
In the stand-up comedian world, he is 100% an A-lister. In the Jeff Everett world, Dave Chappelle, trying to go through. I mean, he is.
You're a big fan, so it's a tough.
I'm biased on
it,
but this is different. This isn't like a Ryan Reynolds big fan. Like Dave Chappelle is so recognizable and he's so unique and he's done it for so long. He probably is. Like if I really sat down.
But Madonna's not.
No, people don't recognize Madonna. We've been through this.
Whatever.
Is Jimmy more likely to recognize Madonna or Dave
15.
Chappelle?
What does he care? He doesn't have a vote. He's 15. He can't vote.
You only show your age when we talk about the A-list stuff because that's the only time you ever bring up age into it. Because you'll be like, he's 15 or that doesn't 15-year-olds make up the world. Like they're a part of society, whether you want them to be or not.
A 15-year-old can make an A-list and it's going to suck.
Changes their rules. Jimmy is a part of society.
I get that he's a part of society. He can't vote.
Okay, but he can be on Facebook and he can share stuff. He can
unless
sway
there's
the
elaborate voter fraud.
I bet you right now, Jimmy on Facebook can probably sway the election more than you could. I bet you Jimmy has more pull in the election than your vote itself has.
No way.
Yep.
No way.
I bet you.
Because
I bet you. This is what I'm saying.
Because you have to keep in mind, because he's 15, he's a freshman in high school. The vast majority of his social media friends can't vote.
What 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds did on TikTok leading up to 2020 and the things that they were able to organize and do to like kind of like try to put down the Trump campaign.
To buy tickets to events that they weren't showing to.
I'm telling you what these people, what that generation can do without having an actual vote itself, what they can do to kind of put their punch, their stamp on the election, I would argue is almost as valuable than my vote or your vote.
See, I don't think they put. I don't know if they had any effect on the election. I think they had a great effect on, not a great effect. They proved that they could mess with the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think, like, there was it the Tulsa rally where all the people, you could order your tickets online, and all these young kids ordered them and never went, and so it was mostly empty. I don't think that cost Trump one vote.
Oh, I think the part of it that you're missing is like the headlines and news, because it may not persuade my vote or your vote or some right. But if I'm an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old kid and I'm on these platforms constantly, and it's like, haha, oh, that was funny. Like, look how stupid that was. There's 18, 19, 20-year-olds that 100% may have been on the fence about voting for Trump. And after that TikTok thing, they were like, well, I'm not gonna fall into that. And so I think their sway on it is significant. I really, really do.
Well, and that is fair, but what a 15-year-old thinks is an A-lister, they're just not right. That's all there's to it.
That part's fine. Let's do this real quickly. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. Ben Simmons showed up to training camp.
Took his check.
I think it just became too much. For those of you, real briefly, the $8 million went into escrow. If he didn't show up to training camp, they were going to deduct it with, like, I think it was $50,000 for missing a practice.
He was losing every day.
Every day he was losing. At a minimum, my understanding is every day he was losing $50,000. Like, for one practice, it was $50,000
there it goes.
Deducted, and that doesn't include like media sessions,
and he's not
preseason games, nothing else. And I think what happened was after the first week, he probably saw the numbers and he probably said, like, I got to show up. That's what I think happened.
Yes. So, and we talked last week, they front loaded his contract because they thought it was going to help.
Yes.
Then they get into a contract dispute. He wants to hold out, and the team says, go ahead, hold out. Your big checks are coming now. And they're now that since you're not here, they're not coming at all. So yeah, it's just it's a funny, crazy, sad situation with a guy that has a $150 million contract now, and the team hates him and he hates the team.
Well, we could dive into this another time. The workplace aspect. I mean, he threw all of them under the bus.
All of them.
And now his argument will be, they threw me under the bus, which isn't, I don't think it's as correct, but it's not a lie. Like, they asked Doc Rivers at the end of last year, they lost to the Hawks in that series, and they said, can Ben Simmons be a championship point guard? And Doc Rivers' answer was, I don't know.
Isn't that a good answer?
That's not a great answer. If I'm the point guard, if I'm a quarterback or a point guard, and my coach, they say, am I a championship player? And my coach's answer is, I don't know. I don't know. That's not.
See, I think that's just incredibly honest. If someone asked the Dallas Cowboy coach, is Dak Prescott a championship quarterback? I think it's a fair question.
If someone asked me if the year before last year, someone said, is Idris Ali a state championship point guard? Yes. I can't say yes. I don't know if he is. I can't promise you that he is. But the answer is yes. That is my dude. That is the guy. I am rolling with him. And the only way that I'm going to get there is with him. Doc Rivers knew that if he wants to get this done, like if I want to do this, Ben Simmons has to be a part of this. So even if psychologically you don't know, like even if internally you're not sure, the answer is yes.
No,
that is my guy. We're going to get this done.
I totally disagree with that.
Yes.
Do you have a state championship point guard now?
I do. Kyrie Irving.
Who?
No, Idris Ali.
No, this year on your team.
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
So now you're lying.
His name's Siraj Ali, and he already has one. Siraj will like that I called him a point guard.
He's your point guard.
That's why I did that. I wanted to call Siraj a point guard.
But you're backpedaling.
I wanted to call Siraj a point guard.
You can't just say everyone's could he be a state championship?
No.
Yes. No.
But no. This is what I would say. If the ball bounces our way and we play the way we can, then yes, he can be a state championship point guard. Because that's what it comes down to. And that's my guy. So I'm rolling with him. This is the part, when you're at a public school, that's the guy. It's like, it's not like you don't have a choice.
And they're stuck with Ben Simmons.
That's the dude.
But coming out and saying, I don't know.
You can't say I don't know.
Why?
Because he signed a 5-year contract. So this
he
is what I'm
saying.
saying.
No.
So this is what I'm saying to you. If you sign someone to a 5-year contract, you very clearly think that at some point they are what you need to get where you want to go. And if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, you want to get to a championship. Thus, if you are the coach and they ask you in the first year of a 5-year contract, is Ben Simmons a championship point guard? Yes. The answer is yes.
I think you had the wrong verb. You said you think, and I think they hope. because in the world, you don't get to pick from everyone.
You can't say that, though.
You get stuck.
You can't say that. I internally agree with what you are saying. You cannot say that. That is the guy.
You can't be honest.
You can be honest with yourself, but you can't be honest like there because you can't. I don't understand. You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
I do.
They signed a 5-year deal.
Because he said, I don't know. He's never won before. I don't understand why.
Then don't sign him to a 5-year deal.
He didn't say no.
Then Doc Rivers and management failed because they signed somebody for 5 years that they don't believe in and that couldn't get them to the
No. He didn't say that.
Yes, that's what when he says I don't know, that's essentially what you're doing. Because if you're going to sign someone to a 5-year, $170 million deal, you better have an inkling that he's a championship point guard.
Well, they did have.
It better cross your brain.
They did have an inkling until last year in the playoffs when he was a total disaster.
That's right. So
now their inkling went to I don't know.
And so when you go up to that podium, you got to be like Stonewall. Yes, that is our guy. We're gonna figure this out because he's on a 4-year contract and we don't have any trade value for him right now. So yes, that's the guy.
I disagree.
That's fine. Kyrie Irving.
I disagree.
The team told him to stay away because he's unvaccinated. For those of you,
because he's crazy.
Well, he's a little crazy. So not because he's unvaccinated, but he's a little crazy. Right now he cannot play home games for the Brooklyn Nets. Thus, the team said until he's able to participate fully, meaning at every game, every practice, he will not be with the team. So this is fascinating. Like we talked about before, Kyrie Irving, he's a flat earther. He does a ton of work with the community. He is a very conflicting human being. This only adds to that saga.
We'll take that. Crazy's not fair. Strange is a better adjective than crazy. He's a strange guy.
He is.
I'm back to the last topic. So get away from sports. Get to any person of society. If you get someone to lead the sales team, and you say, this person is going to be a great leader of the team. You say, yeah. I mean, just to blindly say yes. You cast someone in a show and say, do you think this person isn't going to be a Tony Award winner or an Academy Award winner? Just to blindly say, depends. I hope so,
but you're not.
Or I don't know is a fine answer as opposed to say, yes, this is a Tony Award winner.
But you're not blindly saying it. Because beforehand, you had to make a choice of, do I want this person for the maximum amount of money for the next 5 years? And so you're not saying it blindly. You've clearly already made the choice that he is the guy that you think can do it. So to then backtrack out of it, let me phrase it to you this way. When they were doing those contract negotiations and those extensions, and Ben Simmons and Clutch Sports sat down with them, do you not think that Philadelphia said, hey, sign this extension. You're our guy. Between you and Embiid, this is a championship team. We're bringing in Doc Rivers. We're going to be a championship team, and you are our point guard. Well, because I promise you this, when they were negotiating, they sold it like he was their championship point guard.
Well, I get it.
And now I'm Ben Simmons, and I sit through that meeting, and I am God's gift to earth. And then a year later, now the press conference comes up, and all of a sudden, they don't know.
I get that. But you make it sound like, again, we'll go back to casting. We'll just take this to a different realm of society. When you're casting someone for a Broadway show.
One show, not 5. One show, not 5.
Well, the show's going to last for a year.
But
it's not just like
this
one
show
night.
Lasts for 5.
Well, okay, whatever.
It's not a fair analogy.
Well, Hamilton lasts for however long and Cats last forever.
Yeah, but they left. It's not
but
the same
they don't
cast.
have to. The point is, they're going to hire someone who's going to be on stage for a long, long time with us. It doesn't mean that is the best person in all the world for this part, because the best person in all the world for this part may be already doing another show.
They didn't ask if Ben Simmons was the best point guard in the world. But it's the best
person they could find. So when they say, do you think this person is going to win the Tony Award or the Academy Award or whatever it is? Their answer, this isn't their number one pick. Their number one pick may be down the street or maybe doing TV or maybe doing whatever.
They didn't ask if Ben Simmons is an all-star. They asked, can Ben Simmons be a championship point
And he
guard?
said, I don't know.
And the answer is yes. The answer, if you're Doc Rivers, you have one. Let me ask you this. If Doc Rivers says yes, does Ben Simmons show up to training camp?
I don't know.
He does.
But
and here's the other part of it too. No, he does.
know?
He does, because now he doesn't feel like he's getting thrown on a bus. Here's the other part of it too. If Doc Rivers says yes, is his trade value better or lower?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so again,
but here's the other
if you
thing.
are Doc Rivers, there is one answer, and it is an emphatic. You don't even have to explain it. Like I would have, if the guy asked me, I would have looked dead in the camera, and I just would have said yes. Next question.
So you're saying that this is an example, whether not just in sports, but in all these other aspects. This is like when your wife and or girlfriend comes up to you and says, "Do I look nice?" You say, "You look great."
This is the do I look fat in?
It is the only answer you can possibly give.
This is the like when I go to my girlfriend and I'm like, "Do I look fat in these jeans?" And she says, "No, you haven't gained a pound." I know she's lying, but she knows that is the answer because like we're in this, like we are together and we're in this, and this is how it's going. So yes, that is Doc Rivers' conundrum. The answer is
I would
yes.
say, and I would say from a girl talking to a guy and a guy talking to a girl is different, even though that's double standardish. If you only have one pair of clean jeans and that's the only thing you can wear, then yes.
Yeah.
But if there's another option,
they had a 5-year deal, so there was no other option. There's no other option. You're locked into him for 5 years. His trade value is going down. But it doesn't mean
if she says you don't look good in these jeans, it doesn't mean you're breaking up. It means you're going to go change.
This is the other side of it. And I promise I'm not changing the subject, but this is another good point of it. He had a horrific playoffs.
Horrific.
Like, I'm not defending what he did in playoffs.
I would have been better.
But here's the funny part. Going into the playoffs, he was an all-NBA guy. He was second for Defensive Player of the Year, had the second most votes for the best defensive player in the league. So here's what I'm saying to you. This wasn't like 12 months and like it gradually, this was like in May. People in that organization thought he was the franchise. Like,
well, I get that.
They were the number 1 seed. He was almost the Defensive Player of the Year, top 15 guy in the league. So, and then all of a sudden, June has barely started. So we're talking less than a month's time. And now all of a sudden, my head coach is saying he doesn't know if I'm the guy. He doesn't know if I'm a championship point guard. A month ago, like I was the dude. So I like listen.
But then you change that. So let's take it back to the stage. So you're a director of a Broadway show, and your lead, your highest paid performer, is he paid more than Embiid? He's close. He's paid $150 million.
They both make as much as they can possibly.
They make billion. And you're the director of a Broadway show, and your lead totally wets the bed, is disastrous night after night after night. Then you come to do another show, and you're the director again.
Yeah.
And you're going to hire this same person again to be the lead. And someone said, hold on.
No, someone but you have a choice.
Well,
that's the point.
But someone asked you an honest question.
For a 5-year contract with that person.
But someone asked you an honest question and says, "Do you think this person's going to win a Tony Award?"
Do I get to have auditions?
Do you come out and say yes?
Do I get to have auditions? If I get to have auditions, then no. But if I'm locked into this dude for 5 more shows over 5 years, then like we got to figure it out because otherwise we're screwed. So the answer is yes.
So you're telling me
if I want to sell him off to another show, I need people to believe that we're going to that it's fixable and solvable and we're sorting it out.
From a business trade value, which in real life we can't trade employees, but in sports you can.
From a psychological
from a business trade value to say he's going to be great, to hope someone else buys into and we can trade him. I totally get that.
Here's the other part.
If you're going to tell me that the guy who thinks he was so good that he could sign for $157 million and then can't make a shot from 4 feet away, that his ego is that fragile, then I'm going to tell you the superstar needs to put on his big boy pants and not go cry because my coach says I'm not sure if I'm a champion.
Let me ask you this. Was Doc Rivers part of the problem or the solution when he gave that press conference?
I think Doc.
No. Yes or no? Was he the problem or was he the solution?
I don't think
One
Doc
word
Rivers.
answer. Problem or solution?
Problem.
There you go.
But,
so what are we talking about?
Because he was a refreshing breath of honesty
in
a world.
Didn't know. Everyone knew. It wasn't a secret. Everyone knew he was stinking up the place.
So then isn't it embarrassing when he lies?
But he's not lying because he
is lying because he doesn't know.
He's not lying because he's not saying that he didn't stink for the last 3 weeks. all he's simply saying is, yes, that's my guy. We're going to figure this out. That's what yes meant. Yes is we signed him to a 5-year deal. This is our dude. We got to figure this out. That's yes. Doc Rivers was a problem. He was not a solution when he gave that press conference.
So if your Broadway lead has a bad voice tonight and they ask the director tomorrow, do you think your Broadway lead is going to sing well tonight? You can't say, I don't know. You have to say, oh my God, yes, she's going to be great or he's going to be great. You just can't give an honest answer and say, I don't know, because I don't know is the answer.
I understand that you're trying to like use a different analogy to get people engaged and everything else. It's an awful analogy because because how she does in that play or how he does in that play, how they do in that play is really like very controlled for them. Whereas Ben Simmons, like you're playing a different people and so you have teammates and you're passing the ball and everything else. It's just not a great analogy.
They have
like
teammates on stage.
Listen, what happens to you on stage, I would imagine, is much more within your control than what is in control of Ben Simmons in those playoffs. It's just not a great analogy.
I mean, it is, but it's not. That's not. It's not for these NBA. It's not like it's chaos. Like it's very.
Okay.
It's free flowing, but it's not.
If I do a play, I have words I have to say. I have steps I have to hit.
But yes.
Okay, I have words I have to say. I have steps I have to hit, placements I need to be in at specific times.
Okay.
How much does that vary show to show?
Very, very little.
And how much is someone trying to stop me from being successful at that? I would argue it's almost the opposite. I would argue everybody I see from the moment I walk into the building to the end of the show, people are literally helping me to try to be successful at it. Ben Simmons' world is the opposite.
Well, see, no,
When he walks in the building, half the people in the building don't want him to be successful. Well, and he also isn't going to say the same words and hit the same notes and do the same things. It's just not a great analogy.
But you can't.
I appreciate what you tried to do. It's just not a great analogy.
Obviously not. But when it's your time to speak, if you don't know your lines, there's nobody that can help you. And in basketball, there's 4 guys on the floor that can always help you. If you don't want to shoot, you can find somebody else to shoot. If it's your time and you're not ready or you're late on stage or whatever, there's nobody else. They'll fill for you. They'll make stuff up for you, but they can't bail you out. Ben Simmons can play a whole game and not shoot.
I'm really shocked that you think it's that comparable, because this is what I would say to you. I don't think one's harder than the other. Like, I think the memorization and the preparation and the execution that goes into doing that is just as impressive, if not more, than what a basketball player has to do. Because to your point, it's free flowing and you can react and you can adjust and you can. So like, I'm not saying one's harder than the other, but what I'm saying is like, they're not even, to compare the two is like, it's not even close to being the same thing.
And I can't believe that you think from a psychological aspect, as bad as Ben Simmons, I mean, to the point that a 6'11" NBA player was afraid to shoot from 6 feet away. I mean, he was.
Yeah, was it physical or psychological?
Psychological.
And so what did his coach do at the end?
You think the biggest psychological drawback for Ben Simmons is that his coach now expresses doubt?
Oh, that was the end of it. That was the end.
What is the
That was the tipping. That was it. It was over.
If Ben Simmons doesn't have doubt in here, then either he's the strongest mental person in the history of the world, or he's oblivious to the fact that he was a disaster.
He knows he was a disaster. This isn't an excuse for him, but like, Ben Simmons is not an adult. Like, Ben Simmons is like 24, 25 years old. Like, Ben Simmons has never had to actually do like a real world thing ever in his life. So when you're asking me, like, do I think his mentality is fragile? Absolutely.
Okay.
100. For those guys, it's all about belief. The best players in the world in anything, it's about belief. They truly believe. Did you see the Joe Burrow stuff when he was on the sideline the other week? He was walking up and down the Cincinnati sideline, like, give me the ball. Like, I want, verbally out loud saying, like, here's what's going to happen. Give me the ball. We're doing this. And he's telling guys, like, here's what's about to do. Like, Joe Burrow isn't the greatest quarterback in the world, but if you ask Joe Burrow, his mentality that he thinks that is everything.
And he's 24 years old.
And so what I'm saying is yes, but what I'm point is that if the Cincinnati head coach came out after a bad game and they were like, do you think Joe Burrows is the quarterback of the future of Cincinnati Bengals? And that coach was like, I don't know. You're telling me Joe Burrows isn't a train wreck for the next week. He's a disaster.
Okay. If Joe Burrow's dropping back to pass and he refuses to throw the ball, then he's such a big disaster. It doesn't matter what the coach said.
Okay, but that's different because he has one thing to do. Ben Simmons, like you can ask anybody.
Sometimes he hands off.
You can ask everybody. Ben Simmons was still one of the best defensive players in the playoffs.
All that. I get all that.
One of the best defensive players.
And how many best defensive players in the NBA get max contracts?
More than you'd think. Rudy Gobert won it, and he has a max contract. Draymond Green has a max contract.
Draymond Green can't score.
Ben Wallace is in the Hall of Fame, and he couldn't make a free throw to save his life.
I agree with that.
Okay, so your point is very mute.
I don't think it's very mute. I
the
think
one you just made.
You can't turn around and say he signed. This is the point we say he signed a $157 million contract. If you can't handle the pressures that come with that $157 million contract, then don't sign it. No. But you can't say, I'll take the contract,
offers you
but now I'm a little kid.
$170 million contract, you're going to take it.
And I don't blame him. Okay, but then don't hide behind I'm 24 years old and I can't handle it.
I don't think he's hiding behind the fact that he's 24 years old. What I am saying is that if you're the head coach, you have to know that. Like if Doc Rivers messed this up royally. I'm not saying Ben Simmons doesn't have the responsibility to go make a free throw. What I'm saying to you is Doc Rivers says yes. If he says yes, Ben Simmons is better off mentally. He probably has a better offseason. He probably shows up to training camp for the Philadelphia 76ers. And to be honest with you, we're probably talking about the Philadelphia 76ers being the best team in the NBA because they were the 1 seed in the East last year before it fell apart. And they actually have better pieces with them this year. So this idea that Doc Rivers was 100% a problem instead of a solution, the answer was yes. Do you know how much easier Doc Rivers' world is if he says yes?
But it's such a blatant lie that I don't fault the guy for not looking in the camera and blatantly lie.
So you don't think Ben Simmons is an NBA championship caliber point guard?
No. Okay. They wouldn't even play him at the end of the game.
Okay.
This is like saying it's crunch time. There's a minute to go. We're in a tie game. LeBron, go sit.
Okay. I'm officially a Philadelphia 76ers fan.
Good.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show.
You just like the Jenner chick.
Thank you to all of our sponsors. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news. Anything before we go? Advice? Words of wisdom?
No, there's no baseball today.
None.
Because
tomorrow,
the wrong teams won. They needed a.
So late tomorrow. I think it's not until like 9.
Because it's on the West Coast. Yeah, but it's weird that we got a time with no baseball. But
go Braves.
No, so you can rest up tonight. You can go watch Dave Chappelle tonight.
I might watch it again.
I don't know if I can see it tonight, but I will watch it soon. I'm fascinated to see it.
It's hard. This is the hardest part I have with it because I know there's people that when they watch it, they are offended. And I know that.
That's not the point.
But I can't express to people like it's so good and it's so valuable that even I would just say to people that don't understand it or are offended by it, I still hope that they can see the value that it brings to society and from a stand-up, from an art performance aspect, how valuable it is.
We need to be able, in society, we need to be able to discuss sensitive topics and have people disagree on the sensitive topics, but still hear the points made from the other side.
Sure.
And just hear them and think about them. Because we've gotten in a world where we don't listen to the other side at all because the other side's so stupid, they don't say anything intelligent, when in fact they often say things intelligent. We just don't hear it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Thank you guys for watching Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina, and we will see you mañana. Is it mañana?
I'm Googling. It is mañana. I'm Googling Sixer season tickets for you as we speak.
Thank you. Listen, I'm telling you right now, if Ben Simmons is good at all this year, it's going to be an endless barrage coming at you. And I don't even like him.
But here's the But here's the thing. And he didn't say no.
Who didn't say no?
His coach.
Okay, he didn't say yes.
But it doesn't. So if they go out and Ben Simmons, and he probably won't be this year because I can't believe it come through metamorphosis. But in 3 or 4 years, as a 28-year-old, if he wins an NBA title, it doesn't mean Doc Rivers was wrong.
It does. His decision to not say yes was wrong because one of two things happened. He either was not the coach anymore or Ben Simmons moved on.
I'm not even telling you that if I was Doc Rivers, I wouldn't have said yes.
Yeah.
Because there is that aspect.
Yes.
When kids going to the foul line, he shoots 30%. When you have Ben Wallace going to the foul line,
yes,
you say, "Hey, dude, I believe in you."
Yeah.
Even if you're like in your head, you're like, because what are your other options? It's an
exaggerated version of that.
And I'm not saying I wouldn't have said it. I find it hard. Doc Rivers has won an NBA title.
Yeah, but
I get it, but Doc Rivers has reached the mountaintop, and that goes into the Gruden debate on how good of a coach he was, even though he won a title. And
this is what's funny about it, because it goes exactly with what you're saying. To me, Doc Rivers is not a great basketball coach. He's an incredible humanitarian, and he's a great person. And what's funny to me with that is, at this press conference, I'm not like, no one's asking Doc Rivers to be a great coach at this press conference. What you were really asking him to do was
be a psychologist,
be a psychologist, be a humanitarian, be a good person, and just get us through this moment. And the thing that I think he's the best at, I think he fumbled it. Like, I think in that moment he struggled, because I think all he had to do was say yes.
I don't know. I think I get it, and I'm not saying I wouldn't have, but I don't think him being honest in that he pointed out the 500-pound gorilla in the room.
Sure.
And I don't see how you can fault the guy for that.
He pointed out the okay.
Did I mess up the cliche?
No. I was trying
the white elephant. Whatever. I was trying to the elephant in the room.
I was trying to decide what the elephant is, but I think there was no elephant. I think everyone was very aware. Like, I think everyone knew what was happening.
That's what is. What is the cliche? Is it the elephant in the room or the 500-pound? I guess they're both.
It doesn't. Either way, it doesn't matter. The point is that when you use that cliche, it's the idea that no one wants to talk about it.
Correct.
Okay. Everyone was talking about it. Everybody. So it's this idea of like, if
okay, that's valid. I get that.
So I just, save the guy. Like, that's your dude for the next 4 years, whether you want it to be or not. Save him. Help. What is it in Jerry Maguire? Help me. Help you. Everyone go have a great day.